If you're struggling with a serious chronic digestive disorder, up to and including full-blown symptoms of autoimmune disease, you need to pay close attention to this video. My name is Christian Nix. Over 25 years ago, I set out on an adventure and ended up studying with an old barefoot doctor kind of medicine man, what's called a Curandero, in the highlands of Central America. What he taught me about ancient medicine was an absolute revolution, and I took what I learned and ended up teaching in some of the most renowned hospitals in North America, including Mercy Hospital in Chicago and the world-famous Cleveland Clinic, and to teach doctors what it is that I had learned about healing. Because the ancient medical system my mentor showed me is ideally suited. It was crafted, it was designed, it was created from the ground up over 24 centuries ago to treat the exact same kinds of serious chronic conditions now so prevalent in the patient population in Western countries especially. You don't need pills, you don't need frustrating and pointless doctor visits, and you don't need a bunch of expensive supplements that make you poor and sicker. All it takes is a different understanding of what makes chronic illness so different, which I'm going to give to you in this video, and some new ways of food combining along with some non-dietary tips and tricks. The three keys to your recovery are: number one, emergency medicine. Is the emergency medical system all there is? If you go back tens of thousands of years, all the way up to within the last 150 years or so, most of the death that occurred among the human population was from trauma or infectious illness or some kind of problem and consideration that our modern medical system has largely learned how to solve. If you get shot, if you're in a car wreck, if your body is mangled, if you have a huge, massive trauma, if you can get to the emergency room in time, these people do have the skills very often to save your life. That never existed before. For tens of thousands of years, that's how it was. If you got injured, if your body got punctured or pierced by something, if you got some kind of pathogen into your body, into your bloodstream, into some part of your tissues, you were a goner. And that was normal. That was normal existence. It was believed that that was just how things were. Modern medicine came along and changed that. But there's one thing that modern medicine very certainly does not do very well, and that's it is not designed to treat chronic illness. I'll tell you why in a second. The shortcomings of the modern emergency medical system are exactly what is missing and the reason that so many people struggle needlessly with chronic conditions, from digestive illness like IBS to acid reflux and everything in between, up to and including what's called leaky gut syndrome, where your body thinks it's having a systemic infection, because in fact it is. And that leads me to point number two. Meaning. Your symptoms have much deeper meaning than you realize currently, because nobody's taught you to think this way about what your body is telling you, the signs and signals that your body is sending. Now, if you ate food that was spoiled or rotten, or you went out to eat, right, and the cook didn't do a good job, or the kitchen wasn't clean, and you get wildly, violently ill, nausea and diarrhea and vomiting and all the rest, well, you know what that signal came from. You can figure out pretty quickly cause and effect, because it's such a blaring siren, right? It's such an obvious thing that has happened to you. This got into your body, it made your digestive system upset, and you had a violent reaction to it. But when it comes to chronic illness, there's all kinds of very small, subtle, utterly ignored symptoms. Why? Because again, the modern medical system doesn't put focus on these kinds of what are referred to as functional markers for how your body is doing. A functional marker is just evidence of how your body is operating. If you're too hot, if one part of your body is really exhausted, right? There are signs and symptoms that reveal this. If you have a lot of mucus building up, if you have a lot of waste and obstructions and blockages causing problems in your digestive tract, you know that this is present from some other more subtle signs and symptoms that you've never learned to interpret. And number three, but I'm going to tell you how you can fix that in just a second. Patterns. Look, the modern medical system is, like I said, just an absolutely magical version of emergency medicine. The problem is it's not really looking for the kinds of evidence that would help make sense out of a chronic condition. Modern medicine is based on one basic idea, which is reductionism. The idea is that if you reduce things down through a microscope to smaller and smaller levels, and you get to the molecular, cellular, biochemical molecules and cellular kind of level of medicine, that you can influence matter at that level and also cause people to recover. It's tremendously powerful. There's no question. Anybody who looks at the modern medical system knows it's not only powerful, it's also very dangerous And it's very hard to control and to use biomedical kind of markers at the molecular biochemical level to treat something like a chronic disease. Why? Let me tell you a story by example. I went whale watching once in Monterey Bay in California, and I had my binoculars, and sure enough, I was looking at the whales, I was looking for the whales, I was looking at the ocean, and because I'm looking through binoculars at one pinpointed area of the ocean, I can't see any whales. I was like this for maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes, I don't know. And I took my binoculars down, and there's whales. There's an entire pod of whales just swimming with the boat, right? And they're popping up and breathing, and the whole thing is going on, and I can't see it because I'm focused on one specific spot in the ocean. That's reductionism. That's the modern medical lens that is looking for the cause of your chronic problem in a very, very specific, detailed area and manner that doesn't really apply. Why? Because in chronic illness, the connections between things are the key to your recovery. You have to know how this part of your condition is influencing this part of your condition. It's not that helpful to do a blood panel screening, have your blood drawn, and then they look at these microscopic components that either are present or absent, and then try to deduce these sweeping kind of diagnostic conclusions. It's also why very often when you go to the doctor, you get your blood drawn, they tell you all your tests are normal, and you're absolutely suffering, fit to lose your mind, right? And they're telling you everything's fine because, again, their lens is looking at a very specific stratum, a specific layer of health and illness. And it is the layer that is best suited for acute trauma, injury, life-threatening illness, life-threatening diabetes, cancer, respiratory illness, etc., heart disease, right? At the level of the body is a machine, right? That's where they're operating. With chronic illness, you need something different. You need to be able to recognize patterns. Why patterns? Because a pattern gives you power to treat your entire condition exactly what you have and not a bunch of stuff that you don't, or that a detail about one aspect of your condition that doesn't really help because it's the three things over here that are causing that in the first place. So you can't just like take a pill and block this, like take a pain pill and block pain, or take acid blockers and block your digestive juices. You can't just do that. You have to deal with the entire problem as it exists all at one time. And the best way to do that is by patterns. The ancient medical system that my mentor taught me is the only medical system in the world that teaches you the common patterns in chronic conditions, which repeat over and over again. And when you see and understand your pattern, and you know how to focus in on exactly what your body has and nothing that you don't, so that you're treating your body, and then as your condition begins to shift, which it will, all chronic conditions are always sort of morphing into something new, right? They're changing. You fix this part and then this part gets worse, and you have to know how to get your body to spiral out of illness. There's a lot of cyclicality, and you have to know that if we treat all these pieces and then we get the whole thing correct day after day, the body recovers. The big secret that nobody knows about ancient medicine that's based on patterns, you only have to get it like 10%, 15, 20% right. If you do, your body takes over. Your body's own healing response starts to kick in, and tremendous, tremendous things are possible. I know this because I've been teaching this to tens and now even over 300,000 people in the last 5 years. It's a method I call the pivot protocol. Your pivot is the thing inside you that either keeps you well and keeps your body strong and healthy because it's operating optimally and it's functioning correctly, or it pivots you toward illness because it cannot respond to the kind of insults, slings and arrows, and difficulties that you keep presenting it with. These things have to do with stress. They have to do with the way you're eating, not just what you're eating, but how you're combining foods, the kinds of things that you need to avoid and be smart enough to get out of your life because maybe you're having a reaction to those, even though they taste really good, okay? The pivot protocol is the only system that I know of that teaches you how to eat for your specific condition. When you think about it, the best diet is the diet that's best for you based on your condition and when your condition changes, when your symptoms begin to shift and appear and start to morph into something different, you also change what you're doing to reflect your new condition. The only best diet in the world is the one that's best for you, and when your situation, when your condition begins to change, you change what you're doing. The idea that there's a magic list of foods that you could just eat and suddenly your body's going to be healthy, well, if that list was honest and true and it really existed, everybody would know what it is and nobody would be sick. The only method that makes any sense to me is you have to eat according to your condition. And that means you need to know how to recognize your pattern, and also you need to be able to treat according to your pattern, changing as your pattern changes. That's why I put together a simple 60-minute free online video training where I go into your 4 basic pivotal organs and how these organs influence one another, what's likely happening with your condition according to this very ancient medical system. You're going to get a lot out of it because you're going to recognize and see something that makes sense to your actual experience of illness. And once you start to understand and have a mental picture of what's happening, you realize that there's all kinds of solutions that you can take to solve your condition and to get your body to heal on its own. So please click below to check that out. There's a button below this video and a link. Go to the free online training. Just to finish my story, the ending of my time in medicine was the day that I really realized that there's no chance to change and make any kind of positive difference within the modern medical system as it currently exists. Doctors do not run the modern medical system. Accountants do. Bean counters and guys who look at spreadsheets all day for a living are running the medical system, and there is a very serious problem and conflict of interest with the profit motive. I know this because I taught doctors all over the place, and I got to be a fly on the wall to see how the modern medical system operates. Fortunately, you can figure out how to heal your body on its own without a lot of extra help, but also a lot of extra risk from the modern medical system in the form of pills, and let's face it, just very expensive, time-consuming, and very pointless, useless doctor visits. You also don't need to be taking tons of expensive supplements from people who sell natural cures. If you understand this system, you can really turn the corner on your own. So please check it out. I'll even send you, as a special bonus, a list of the signs and symptoms. I guarantee that you have symptoms on this list. You can go down the checklist and check it off, and then I'll send you more information on what to do next. There's an old saying in ancient medicine: the superior physician treats society. Thanks, and I'll talk to you on the inside.